Hey fellow Trek Chatters, I'm Pit Trekkie and welcome to another episode of Pittsburgh's Trek Chat. Well, for today's episode, this is going to be the first and what I'm hoping will be many different episodes. I have really been looking forward to reviewing these on my videos, and I'm finally able to say that I'm ready to go. So a year ago, it was announced that Playmates Toys had gotten the official license for Star Trek again to make Star Trek action figures. And as many of you out there like myself, we were kids, teenagers in the 1990s when Star Trek was in its really big heyday, and they came out with a great line of Star Trek figures all the way from 1992 to 1999. Action figures, accessories, play sets, dolls, whatever, the works. And to this day, 30 years after their release, people still love them. So when we heard that there were going to be new Star Trek figures that were going to be created, the Star Trek fans went wild, you know, because it brings back obviously the nostalgia piece, but at the same time something new and exciting. And what was kind of new and exciting is that these were going to be new molds of some of the figures that had been released before. So we knew there were going to be Star Trek The Next Generation figures. They were going to bring out Captain Picard, Commander Riker, and Lieutenant Commander Data. Then they were going to bring out original series action figures from Star Trek II for the 40th anniversary. So that would be Admiral Kirk, Captain Spock, and Khan. And then they were also going to release 2 of Star Trek Discovery action figures, which they've never had before, obviously. That would have been Michael Burnham and Saru. And then we found out that they are going to be making the original series Enterprise like they did back in 1995, and a classic Star Trek phaser. So I've been looking through Walmart and Target for a long period of time, the last month or so, trying to see when things were going to be coming out. Finally, last Wednesday, I was able to get my very first Next Generation figure. All right, and I knew before I got any of the figures, the very first one I was going to buy was this one, the Lieutenant Commander Data figure. In its retro packaging, it looks like it was back in the 90s. Just some minor little changes here and there. I love that it's got the 35th anniversary logo for Star Trek The Next Generation on there because, again, you know, it's a special year for TNG. It's 35th anniversary, so it's wonderful, perfect timing. But there's a story why I wanted to take this action figure first. 30 years ago, when my mom was working at a department store called Hills, which is very popular here in western PA and the surrounding states, she managed to get the entire set of the original Next Generation figures. And I remember when she finally told us that they were out. She bought every one of them. And they were actually out in a bag in our shed. Well, the very first figure that I actually picked up and opened was Lieutenant Commander Data. So I figured, you know, at that time I was 11 years old. You can imagine how exciting that was for me. So now, 30 years later, at 41 years old, I thought it would be great to have that tradition happen again. And so I'm going to be opening my Lieutenant Commander Data figure, the new one, with you guys, so I can share that tradition. So based on what I'm seeing here on the box, like I said, it looks pretty good. It looks very retro, very similar to what we had back in 1992. The figure itself actually the sculpt looks really, really good. Looks a little bit more detailed, more realistic coloring, maybe better, posturing. Just in the end, the way that it looks, the way it's molded looks more realistic than maybe they did back in the 90s. Okay, even on the back it looks very similar, very retro to what we had before, that weird looking Enterprise D on the back. I love it has the figures on the back, even though this time it only has 3. It has a description of the different Starfleet gear that's here that they're going to use, and I love that they have a little clip and collect here on the specific figure like they did back in the 90s. So Playmates Toys did a really nice job with bringing back the nostalgic factor for them. So one thing I am as a collector, I don't like keeping my stuff in its packaging because I don't feel like you can really connect with your item unless you actually have textile feel of it. It's kind of like in First Contact when Picard was telling Data about the tactile need to touch the Phoenix and why that connects human beings to the item that they're looking at. So without further ado, let's open up this new Lieutenant Commander Data action figure and see what we got. Alrighty. See where I'm going to start from here. Maybe down here at the bottom. want to damage the box too much. Okay, pull that out. Okay, got the figure in its packaging. Tied up with those little like rubber band twisty tie kind of things. So give me a second here, I'll see what I can do here. So they're not twisty ties, they're basically they're rubber bands with those little like T shapes. So let me grab a pair of scissors here so I can cut them out. Okay, it's one. Okay, got it. That's all I needed for there. The legs will be easier to cut. Okay. And now that that's done, the moment I've been waiting for years. Finally got the figure out. So, let's take a look at it here for a second and see what we got. I think it's a pretty good likeness of Data. In the pictures, I used to think it looked like in the episode Data Lore, the guy that they had use it for the back shots of Data and Lore when Brent Spiner was playing the other character. I thought he looked kind of like that. But it's actually, it's a pretty decent figure. The legs move pretty easily, pretty loose. I heard that you can make these figures sit really easily and very well, especially in the old play sets. So it looks about right. The knees are a little stiff now, so looks like the seating position might actually be pretty good. All right. Let's see here. Stand him back up. Arms move nice. The arms twist. The head is in good place. Looks pretty firm. Looks pretty sturdy. Looks like a good little action figure, and I love the 5-inch size. The 4.5-inch size was fine, but I think this setting it up in a new size is actually going to be helpful for this because it creates something new, and it gives Playmates a chance to actually re-release these without them being too similar to the old ones. So very nice, very good. All right. So he also has accessories, and from based on what it looks like here, these are the exact same accessories he came with back in the 1992 version. So I'll start with the little hand phaser here. Looks basically just like it did back in 1992. You got the little handle. Some of the figures didn't have these little handles on the phaser. Some of them just had a phaser and you just put it in their hand. But with Data, he's got the handle again. So put it on him here. Okay. Well, I'm having a little hard time here with that. So actually just put it without the handle in his hand. So looks pretty good. Firing the phaser. Okay. He's got the tricorder. It's nice to see his tricorder here back. Let's see if I can get it out of here first. Is it taped in there? Or is it just... Yeah, it's individually taped in there. Might have to use my scissors here to pop it out. Oops, don't want to do that. I'm having a hard time getting it out. There it goes. It wasn't taped. So now I just scratched it for nothing. Alright. Whatever. Okay, so again, it's got a little handle here, but the handle's actually a little bit movable. It was bent up. Now you can kind of bend it down there. Put it in his hand. These handles don't seem to want to stay. Try to put them in their hands and they don't really want to stay in there. Here we go. I think I finally got it. Okay. I think I'm going to have to play with my figure a little bit here, but it doesn't seem like these accessories really want to stay on Data's hands. So I'm wondering if that's going to be a little bit of a problem with all the figures going on. But there's the tricorder. Okay. Here is his... This is some sort of diagnostic tool. And I remember the original Data figure had this exact same diagnostic tool for him to hold. Looks like there are two handles on it this time, so I don't know how he's going to put this on there, but like I said, I'm having a really hard time. These handles don't seem to want to stay on the figure. I don't know why. Guess that's about the the best I'm going to be able to get it. Something like to that effect. What was interesting about the Data figure from 1992 is he had a little panel here on his arm that you could open, and it kind of had some, what was supposed to be circuitry in there. That was really cool. They don't have it this time around. So, I mean, it's okay. It's not a big deal, but that would have been a cool feature to add to that as well, just to kind of complete the nostalgic factor there. All right. Now, this is the one accessory that I've been really waiting to see, and I've been kind of nervous about. Because going back to the 2009 Star Trek movie figures, which I actually have some of them in my office here, their stands were cheap as hell and were horrible, and they would fall down for anything. So I'm looking at the little plastic stand. Now, I'll be honest, I'm a little disappointed with this one. They should have had it with the Next Generation logo like they did in 1992 with the communicators that they wore. But I guess they're just going for a streamlined stand now. And I will tell you this is a lighter weight piece of plastic than what they had in the 90s. So as of now, this isn't really impressive, the stand. But let's put Data on there and see what happens. Alright, so I got Data on his stand. Looks like the stand is actually sturdy enough that it's going to hold the figure. So I'm a little bit more satisfied with it than I thought that I would be. So I'll tell you what, I spent $12.99 on this figure. I guess, you know, for nowadays, for a figure, that's not bad. I mean, you go and you buy those little reaction Star Trek figures, and they're what, $16.99, $17.99, $19.99, depending on where you go and get them. For $12.99, this is a good little action figure. It's got some really nice accessories, and the stand is not as bad as I thought it would be. So, not bad for the very first Star Trek figure here, me opening. So, what are your guys' thoughts? Did any of you guys get the Data figures or any of the other action figures? Please let me know what you thought of the video and what you thought of the unveiling here. You can, obviously you can go onto YouTube, type in Pittsburgh's Trek Chat, you can find the show through the search engine. You can go on Facebook, facebook.com/Pittsburgh's Trek Chat. You can also follow the show on Twitter at PGH Trek Chat. Looking forward to the next episode. Until then, may yins live long and prosper.